to my mind, if you only took away one thing from the hearing today, it was this next exchange between Jack Smith and a Vermont congresswoman named Becca Balint. It was an exchange about basically what it means to be Jack Smith right now in 2026, to have done the investigation that he did, to have found what he found, to have served your country by sticking to your guns, even when that meant the leader of the United States government and his party and his supporters would try to destroy you for it.
Trump has said that you, Mr. Smith, should be investigated and put in prison. He called you a disgrace to humanity, a radical left Marxist, a criminal. In fact, Trump has used the words deranged Jack Smith 185 times on Truth Social. How do you think that these statements have impacted you, your staff, and your investigation?
With respect to me, I think the statements are meant to intimidate me. I will not be intimidated. I think these statements are also made as a warning to others what will happen if they stand up. And I am, as I say, I'm not going to be intimidated. We did our work pursuant to department policy. We followed the facts and we followed the law, and that process resulted in proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed serious crimes. I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen because he's threatening me.
And Mr. Smith, do you believe that President Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you?
I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president.
Jack Smith, I will not be intimidated. I'm not going to pretend those serious crimes didn't happen just because he's threatening me. As I said before, I will not be intimidated. Nicole Wallace, what did you take from this hearing today?
Well, what I took from my own reaction was that this was so extraordinary. But before Trump destroyed the Department of Justice, there were hundreds of Jack Smiths inside the Department of Justice. He was the archetype of the kind of person who chose that life instead of, being a partner at Paul Weiss and having multiple houses and occasionally flying private. I mean, this is what DOJ was made of. So what I thought about was how successful Trump's been in moving the Overton window, but I watched this with a lump in my throat, thinking about, nostalgically, about what the department was. The other thing I thought of was he is the most senior Justice Department official to defend what we kind of shorthand as rank and file. But the people that have been purged from the Justice Department were the best of the best. The most senior prosecutors, the most senior FBI agents who have been pilloried reputationally, threatened legally, face death threats, by and large, if they've been named and outed and smeared in the right-wing press. And they have hollowed out the Department of Justice. Merrick Garland hasn't defended those people. Lisa Monaco hasn't defended those people. Joe Biden hasn't defended those people. Today, Jack Smith, right after that clip you played, described the real danger in the threats and efforts to intimidate him to his team. And he really defended the integrity of the work they did. And I think some of what sinks in when you watch this is that we're all here today because this is extraordinary. We all know that this doesn't happen inside the Justice Department. No one says what he said today to the public in that Congress, to Pam Bondi or Todd Blanche or Emil Bove. And if they did, if Danielle Sassoon or Liz Oyer or any of those people did, they've been asked to leave.
That's right. Which is the dark and terrible side of the Justice Department professional ethic that says if you are asked to do something unprofessional or wrong, you resign. We have seen people resigning like whole forests of them falling all at once. And what it means is that the Justice Department, as you say, doesn't have those folks in it anymore.
That's right. And what is so, I think, painful about this is not that just Jack Smith's work that he did on behalf of not a president, not a party, but on behalf of the country. Yeah. He worked for the country. He was a taxpayer-funded prosecutor who came out of a different post to do this extraordinary job at a point in time when there was literally nothing to be gained. And as he stated at the end, he faces threats and harm, and he's all but certain he will be indicted. They will attempt to prosecute him because Donald Trump wants them to. That not only did he not succeed in bringing a case he knew he could prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury, but he will be punished for it.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I like Nicole, also felt like I was watching this human embodiment of all that's been lost and all that is crucial and central to really the entire functioning of American democracy, like this kind of a person who's a serious, smart, capable person devoted to public service who is doing their work without fear or favor, which they really want to destroy. I mean, they're quite explicit about that, right? They want to turn it into the U.S. government into basically Tammany Hall with nukes. They want a complete machine that's also like the global superpower where like everyone has a job because you gave Donald Trump some money or you know him, right? And this is like the ultimate rebuke to them.
And what you do with your job is serve the machine.
Yeah. Don't forget, Tammany Hall also tried to do some good things.
Yes, that's true. You're right. Actually, you are actually correct. That Tammany Hall is actually
We're in Laura's defense, Tammany
You are
Hall.
no. That is actually an important and good point.
Some like pothole filling.
No, they actually did do it.
Yeah.
The second thing, I mean, the other very lukewarm take I have is like, boy, it really, I mean, he was guilty as hell, and it was a real mistake we elected him again. The final thing I thought was, just watching it, the sort of optics, take a step back, is like someone used this term that we're in the midst of a clicktatorship.
Yeah.
This sense that everything they're doing, the Trump administration, is spectacle, the sort of spectacle of menace, that when an ICE officer actually shoots and kills an American citizen in a car, he has to move the cell phone from his hand to the other hand so he could keep recording as he shoots her, because the generation of content is so important. Today we got reporting that when Charlie Kirk was killed, Kash Patel inside the FBI, the first thing he was concerned about was what he could tweet, and coordinating with Dan Bongino about what he could tweet, that he wanted to tweet pictures from Windsor Castle with his girlfriend that actually would expose MI5 agents. This is all New York Times Magazine today. That this obsession with spectacle, and here's Jack Smith as like the ultimate opposite of that, right? Like a sober, solemn, serious person facing down this kind of carnival of absurdity that has now become, again, and that's always been part of politics. Hearings, as you will attest, right? They're always theatrical. Theatricality is part of politics. I have no problem with that. I talk for a living. But what is totally absent is any sense of seriousness or moral compass right now in the government we have. And here's this person who just feels like this, like, archaeological find from another era.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, the aesthetic of it, his asceticism, his stoicism, is itself part of the message. Ari.
Jack Smith's headline today was Donald Trump belongs in prison.
Yeah.
That he had the evidence, that the case was moving forward, that he could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Even Republicans seem to acknowledge that he is a strong and aggressive prosecutor, which is what prosecutors are supposed to be. Donald Trump belongs in prison. That's really something for the country to still see and hear from this person. Second, to echo others, Jack Smith is a sober guy in a drunk bar at 1 a.m.
Yes, exactly.
And he stands out more that way.
Exactly.
And our job is to try to make sense of this. And you just presented some of those key highlights. People can take it in. People can go online later tonight, tomorrow, watch more. What I saw there on the scale of public servants was an especially sober, fair person. If someone was watching and they're super political and they wanted to see him spar and rebut every type of Republican question that was a little leading or a little over here, he didn't do that. Why did he do that? Because that's not who he is.
Yeah.
But they need to discredit him because even with the case closed, he still comes off very credible.
Right. Yes. And more of the case is going to come out if Volume 2 of his report is unsealed by the court. And a lot of people argue that part of the reason this whole hearing might have happened today was to try to muddy him up before the country gets a whole new dose of information based on the evidence that he gathered.
Well, for me, whenever I'm watching congressional hearings, I mourn for the day when they actually used to work. So one thing that was on display was the decline and fall of the congressional hearing. We used to have hearings like this in which both sides were actually trying to find the truth. The Watergate hearings were the example of this. There was a certain slight amount of Republican defensiveness for Richard Nixon through the beginning of the Watergate hearings, but as the evidence mounted, members responded to the evidence.
Yes.
And what you saw today was this utterly nonsensical display that there's no amount of evidence that could ever be proof to any Republican on that committee of anything. And this is where Donald Trump is not to blame for Donald Trump. There could be no Donald Trump without those people. Those are the people, the Republicans in Congress. They are the people who gave this country Donald Trump. They are the people who decided we're not just going to tolerate him. We are going to try to become him. And so what you saw today were Donald Trump's best students in Trumpian lying. They just think they can go into a committee hearing and lie and lie and lie. And during our lifetimes, that was absolutely impossible. If you got caught in a hearing in the Senate or the House saying something that could be proved to be untrue during the hearing, which was hard before the internet, but if that could happen, that would be the end of that person on that committee. The chair would go to the speaker and say, we got to get him off of this. He can't be here for this. And so here we are. The enabling party of Donald Trump was on display today.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think that, back in the day, if you were like a kid who, played hooky from school to watch a congressional hearing, you could pretty much assume that kid someday was going to become a congressional staffer or run for Congress. Right. Like it was that kind of nerddom. Any kid watching this today is definitely never going to run for Congress. Yeah. This is like whatever the opposite of an advertisement is for whether this is a good line of work.
Famous Moynihan quote of, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. Yeah. He would say that in a Senate hearing approximately once a year, because he would be pushed to the point of saying that exactly once a year. That's how much we accepted the same facts and then argued off of the same facts in those days.